Prisoners serving life without parole. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about Joanna Dennehy, a psychopathic serial killer who killed 3 men and attempted to murder 2 others. Life Without Parole was brought out in 1983 and it was reserved for the most heinous of crimes. People who had committed murder and getting out of prison and committed further murders, and people whose crimes were so bad the only sentence it merited was life without parole. There was some 100 people sentenced to this sentence, and there's currently 70 people still serving it. Joanna Dennehy was born in 1982 in St Albans, Hertfordshire. She was raised in a 4-bedroom house in the affluent commuter town of Harpenden, Hertfordshire. A regular fixture on the school hockey and netball teams, the mother of 2 doesn't fit the bill of a serial killer. However, she has been diagnosed with several psychopathic and antisocial disorders, including borderline personality disorder. After her arrest, she was diagnosed with paraphilia, sadomasochism, where sexual excitement is derived from pain and humiliation. With a history of low-level crime, she was continuously on the police radar. However, no one could have guessed she was to become one of Britain's most notorious killers. Joanna Dennehy, 31 at the time, began her rampage in March 2013 in Peterborough. She then drove 140 miles to Hereford, where she attempted to murder 2 other men, John Rogers and Robin Bereza. At the Old Bailey in London, Mr. Justice Spencer sentenced her to a whole life term, meaning she will never be released. The only other woman serving a whole life sentence is Rose West. Dennehy laughed in the dock as the judge said she was a cruel, calculating, selfish and manipulative serial killer. Spencer said she had a sadistic lust for blood. Dennehy appeared in the dock with her accomplices, Gary Stretch and Leslie Layton, who were convicted of offences relating to her killing spree. Dennehy, wearing pink sleeveless t-shirt, smiled and chatted during the proceedings. Stretch was sentenced to life in prison and will serve a minimum of 19 years. Layton was sentenced to 14 years, and a third accomplice, Robert Moore, 55, who admitted assisting an offender, received a 3-year sentence. Dennehy, who was referred to in earlier proceedings as Joanna, is one of the most lethal women in English criminal history. Her first victim was Lucas Slabowski, 31, who was lured to a property in Peterborough via suggestive texts and then stabbed through the heart. He had come to believe Dennehy was his girlfriend, which led him to text a friend saying life is beautiful. Over the next fortnight, Dennehy used a pocket knife to stab her housemate John Chapman, 56, and her landlord and boss, Kevin Lee, 48. In Hereford, she attempted to murder 2 strangers within 9 minutes of each other as they walked their dogs. The judge said Dennehy had a psychopathic personality and she had provoked a strange fascination among the men. Lee was found dressed in a black sequined dress with his buttocks exposed. The judge said the body had been posed in the position in the ditch. The court heard that Dennehy became excited at reports that police were hunting for her. As graphic and bizarre details of her acts were detained by the judge, Dennehy appeared to laugh and smile. The court heard that she had told a psychiatrist she killed to see if she was as cold as I feel, and that spilling blood became Moorish. The judge said Dennehy had written him a letter showing no remorse for the murders, but claiming for some attempted murders, which she blamed on drunken cruelty and lack of respect for human life. Dennehy was the 3rd woman in the UK to be given a whole life tariff after Myra Hindley and Rosemary West. After the trial, it emerged that the probation service was supervising Dennehy at the time of the murders, as she had been convicted of assault and owning a dangerous dog. It was later concluded that the staff dealing with her were inexperienced. While Dennehy was on remand before the trial, prison staff found an escape plot in her diary. This involved killing or seriously injuring a prison officer, cutting off one of the officer's fingers and using the amputated finger to fool a biometric system in the prison. Because of the plot, Dennehy was placed in solitary confinement from September 2013 before the court proceedings to September 2015 after the court proceedings. She claims isolation left her tearful and upset and led to self-harm. The High Court rejected Dennehy's claim that her human rights had been violated. Government lawyers argued isolation was necessary due to the nature of Dennehy's offences and the risk she could pose to the public if she were to escape. Mr. Justice Singh found solitary confinement was in accordance with the law. At all material times, it has been necessary and proportionate. At the time, Dennehy was incarcerated in HMP Bronzefield. In 2018, she requested permission to marry her cellmate, Hayley Palmer, and received a positive answer from prison authorities, to the dismay of Palmer's family, who feared Dennehy might endanger her. In 2018, both Dennehy and Palmer tried to kill themselves during a suicide pact. In June 2020, she was reported to be in a relationship with another prisoner, Emma Aitken, a 25-year-old, serving a 12-year sentence for her part in the murder of a man whose body was dumped outside a social club. In May 2021, it was again reported Dennehy and Palmer, since released from a 16-year robbery sentence, intended to marry. In 2019, Dennehy was moved to Low Newton Prison in County Durham, right next door to Frankland Prison. Upon her arrival, she was threatened to kill Rosemary West, who had been moved to another prison. Dennehy will go down as one of the most brutal killers in British criminal history, and she will never be released from prison.